Hello friends, we are considering different concentration techniques. Now while we are discussing in the context of concentration technique, it is never our goal to separate the particles based on their sizes. As a matter of fact, we want to influence the role of sizes while we are separating the particles in the context of froth flotation. Now we saw that while we considered a specific technique of concentration, which we refer to it as gravity separation. Now in the gravity separation, we wanted to separate the particle based on their density because this particular technique is adapted in cases where the difference between the density of minerals and gangs are significant. So only in those instances, only in case of those mixture of particles, we will be adapting the gravity separation process. And again, we want to reduce the influence of the size on the gravity separation because the separation should largely be based on their density. And the same goes for the process that we are considering now, which is the froth flotation process. Now we saw in our previous discussion that this process of this technique of froth flotation is unique in one way. When I say unique, it is rather all-inclusive, all-encompassive, or it encapsulates all the three different physical systems or states of the physical system. That is, it involves both solid, liquid and gas. And it is also quite versatile because this approach can be adapted or efficiently adapted rather for a wide size range of particles. Now, when we say this process is unique or this process encapsulates all three different states of the system, what we mean by that is the constituents that are involved in froth flotation, they include solids, which are the particles that we are principally interested in. These are the particles that are being treated. The liquid, which is essentially water, that acts as one of the medium for the separation, and the bubbles, the air bubbles, which acts as the other medium for separation. So we have solid, liquid and gas, which are air, which collectively operate in the framework of froth flotation to separate the mineral from that of the gangue. Now in case of gravity separation, the feature of the particles that enabled us to separate mineral from that of the gangue or the concentrate from that of the tailing is the density. If you want to identify similar mineral property, or similar distinguishing property of the mineral that helps us separate the tailing from that of the concentrate in the framework of froth flotation, it is the chemical composition. So because of the characteristic difference in the chemical makeup of the mineral when compared to its gangue, we are able to employ this technique of froth flotation because depending on the chemical makeup, the chemical composition, the response of the particle to the chemical reagents or the collectors vary. The chemical reagents or the collectors in the framework of the froth flotations. These collectors are nothing but the chemical reagents. So what these chemical reagents or the collectors, what they do is they manipulate the surface of the particles. The way these chemical reagents or the collectors manipulate the surface of the particle depends on the chemical composition. If the chemical composition of the mineral lends itself to a specific form of manipulation, the chemical composition of the gangue will rather experience a different form of manipulation or quite a contradictory form of manipulation. So it is the difference in the chemical composition of the mineral and the gangue which is exploited in the froth flotation to differently rather manipulate the surface of the mineral from that of the gangue or contradictorily manipulate the surface of the particles from that of the gangue, mineral particles from that of the gangue. Now, when we say manipulating, we want to ensure that this manipulation is not just different, but it's poles apart. It is contrastingly different. And since we employ water as a medium of separation, this contrasting way of distinguishing or contrasting way of manipulating the surface has to do with water, and these are technically referred to as hydrophobic and hydrophilic surfaces. So what we essentially do is we manipulate the surface in such a way that one category of particles are hydrophobic, the other category of particles are hydrophilic. Now these collectors, they interact with the surface, and one form of an interaction renders the surface an hydrophobic nature, the other form of interaction renders the surface the hydrophilic nature. And we saw that this interaction is referred to, or it's achieved by a process called as adsorption. The manipulation is achieved by a specific form of interaction, and this interaction is referred to as adsorption. So through adsorption, the surface of the particles are manipulated. Now either the surface of the particle is hydrophobic or the surface is hydrophilic. So it can either be the mineral particles are hydrophobic, in that case the gangue particle will be hydrophilic, or either the gangue particles are hydrophobic, in that case the mineral particles are hydrophilic. So there are only two possibilities: either the mineral particles are hydrophobic, in that case the gangue particles will be hydrophilic, or the gangue particles will be hydrophobic, in that case the mineral particle will be hydrophilic. So it is case 1 and it is case 2. So the distinction is clearly made because all the particles are allowed to interact with the collectors and they are allowed to manipulate the surface appropriately. So there is a clear distinction being made through the appropriate manipulation of the surface. Now in the previous lecture we saw that this manipulation is achieved by the adsorption of the reagent, and if you consider the theory behind the change or the manipulation of the surface, the change in the surface property, if you look closely how this is achieved, it is achieved by the change in the interfacial energy. Now when you consider a particle that is in contact with water, so there is a specific interface. So this interface is, so there is an interface that separates this particle from that of the water, and there is a specific interfacial energy associated with it. So if we refer to this particle that is solid and this as liquid, there is a specific interfacial energy, solid liquid, and this we will refer to, and there is a specific interface, and this specific interface has a definite interfacial energy associated with it. Now when we say that we are manipulating the surface, supposing the collector manipulates the surface in such a way, through adsorption the collector manipulates the surface. Let us consider the surface here. So it manipulates the surface in such a way that the particle turns, this particle here turns hydrophilic. Now if you consider the manipulated surface, the interfacial energy of the manipulated surface as gamma prime SL. So after, this is before manipulation and this is after manipulation, and now if you assume or if you compare these two definite interfacial energy, so this is after and this is before, and when you compare this, the interfacial energy after manipulation will be significantly higher than the interfacial energy before manipulation between the solid and the liquid. And in this case what you have established is an hydrophilic surface, or rather an hydrophobic surface, pardon me. So what we have established is an hydrophobic surface. So what we have done is we have increased the energy, the interfacial energy. So meaning we have increased the energy of the system through the manipulation of the surface. Now the system readily wants to get rid of or avoid being in contact with water, because the interfacial energy now has been increased. Now the system wants to avoid getting in touch with water. So that is achieved by increasing the interfacial energy between the solid and the liquid. On the other hand, if after manipulation, say gamma prime, after manipulation, if the interfacial energy of the manipulated surface is less than that of the one that is before manipulation, then we have established an hydrophilic surface, meaning the particle readily wants to get in touch with water. So this, when we say readily wants to interact with water or to avoid getting touched by water or to avoid interacting with water, what we are essentially talking about, the technical term for that is wettability. So when we say because of the increased interfacial energy, the particle avoids getting in touch with water or getting in contact with water, then what we essentially have achieved is we have reduced the wettability of the particle. On the other hand, when we say that the particle, because the interfacial energy has been reduced because of the due to the manipulation of the surface, then essentially we have increased the wettability of the particle. Now, the collector, what it essentially does is the interaction, the adsorption of the collector, what it essentially does is it ensures that the gamma prime of one category of the particle, so the gamma prime of one category, so this is of one category of the particle, after the adsorption is greater than before the adsorption. So it ensures that this criteria here is satisfied for one category of particle and this criteria here is satisfied for the other category of particles. So this criteria here is satisfied for one category of particles. So let me make it more clearer. So this criteria here is satisfied for one category of particles, while this criteria here is satisfied for the other category of particles. So once we are able to ensure that this difference in the interfacial energy based on the particle is achieved, then essentially we have created hydrophobic particles and hydrophilic particles. So essentially we have separated the particles or the interfaces more specifically into hydrophobic interfaces and hydrophilic interfaces, and then what essentially we have done is we have separated the particles into hydrophobic particles and hydrophilic particles. Now after in manipulation, then we have for hydrophobic, so for hydrophobic, the after manipulation, so gamma prime, the interfacial energy between solid and liquid is the highest, and for hydrophilic, the interfacial energy between solid and liquid after the gamma prime, the prime is important, after the manipulation or after the adsorption is the lowest. Okay, the reason why we need to introduce the term highest and lowest, because highest and lowest only we consider when there are similar other counterparts to these variable that we consider here. So what other counterparts are possible? Now when we extend our interface just between solid and liquid and consider the overall framework of the fourth flotation technique, then in fourth flotation what we introduce is we introduce air bubbles. And these air bubbles, in addition to being formed in the liquid, they interact with solid. So it is possible for us that this particle, a given particle, may interact with the air bubble. And this interface here, it is formed between the solid and air. And again, let us now consider this particle as already experienced the manipulation, has already experienced the adsorption. So therefore, this interfacial energy will be gamma prime, solid and air. The interface that is formed between the solid and the air bubble is referred to as gamma prime SA. Now this all occurs within the water. So all these occurs in water. So therefore there is also an interface between the air bubble and the liquid water. So therefore there is an additional interfacial energy. Just for the sake of consistency, we will consider gamma prime, because of course we are not manipulating the air bubble, but nevertheless, just for the sake of consistency, we are considering a system that has been the surface of which has been manipulated. We are considering a system which has experienced adsorption. So therefore we will stick with this convention of using gamma prime. So the interface energy, or the interface separating the air bubble and the liquid, the interfacial energy gamma prime will be LA. So we have within the framework, considering that the interfacial or the froth flotation involves solid, liquid and gas, we have three different interfacial energies. One between the solid and the liquid, the other between the solid and the air bubble, the other between the liquid and the air bubble. Now given that there are three different variables, it makes some sense for us to state that in case of hydrophobic condition, for the hydrophobic particles, the interfacial energy between solid and liquid is the highest, whereas the interfacial energy between liquid and the solid and liquid is the lowest for the hydrophilic case. So since in the framework of froth flotation we have three different interfacial energies or three different interfaces that are formed, so there are correspondingly three different definite interfacial energies. Now it is rather meaningful for us to say that for hydrophobic conditions, for a foreign hydrophobic particle, the interfacial energy between solid and liquid after manipulation is the highest. For hydrophilic case, the interface between solid and liquid after manipulation is the lowest. Now we saw in our previous lecture, when you have an hydrophilic case, meaning you have a particle and, or let us assume an hydrophobic case, you have a particle where the interfacial energy between the solid and the liquid, that is the solid here and the liquid here, is the highest. So let us use a different colors. So solid here and the liquid here is highest. Then the system wants to reduce its interfacial energy, and this the system can reduce only by interacting with the air bubble. So the system, when it is in contact with the liquid, because of the highest interfacial energy, so we are considering an hydrophobic case, and then the system is in contact with water alone, because of the highest interfacial energy, the system is in a high energy state. Now when you allow it to interact with the air bubble, so this is when you allow, this is here is the air bubble. So when you allow the system to interact with the air bubble, then the interfacial energy in this region is reduced. So the greater the interaction is, the greater the interface between the solid and the air bubble is established, the greater will be the reduction of the overall energy of the particles. So therefore, when you have such an hydrophobic system, or when you have a system wherein the interface energy between solid and liquid is highest, then this particle will want to ensure that a great amount of, or an higher amount of area interacts with, not with liquid, but interacts with the air. So what this particle wants to do is, it wants to increase the area that interacts with the air bubble but not with the liquid. So it wants to reduce the wettability, it wants to avoid the interaction with liquid, and all this depends on the interfacial energy between the solid and liquid, and also how much lower is the interfacial energy between the solid and the air bubble. So it not only depends on the interfacial energy between solid and liquid. Of course, when the interfacial energy is highest, then the interaction is more favorable, but the amount of interaction depends on the interfacial energy between solid and air bubble as well. So therefore, when you want to quantify how much interaction is possible, then we need to consider both all these different interfacial energies. Or let me repeat, when you want to state that the interaction between the solid and air bubble is favorable, then all you need to consider is this criteria alone. So when you want to say if a given interaction is favorable or not, this is a qualitative statement. You just stating that if an interaction is favorable or not, if an interaction between air bubble and the solid is favorable or not. For that, you just need to consider only this criteria here. So only these two statements you need to consider. Either you need to consider this or this. If the interfacial energy between solid and liquid is the highest, then the interaction between the solid and the air bubble is favored. On the other hand, if the interfacial energy between solid and liquid is the lowest, then the interaction between the solid and the air bubble is rather not energetically preferred. It is not energetically favored because already the system, when it is interaction with the liquid, it is in its lower state, so no further increase in energy is required. It is already in its lower state, so this interaction is not preferred. So when you want to qualitatively make a statement if the interaction is possible or not, in those cases only these two criteria are sufficient. Now when you want to quantify the amount of interaction, then we need to include these other interfacial energies as well. Now one way of quantifying the interaction between the air bubble and that of the solid surface is through a particular parameter called the contact angle. So now what essentially we are doing is we are getting into the theoretical aspect of froth flotation. We are narrowing down our approaches. Now we want to quantify the interaction that occurs in an hydrophobic particles or even in an hydrophilic particle. And in order to quantify the interaction, the best way of doing that is through the contact angle. Now the contact angle is nothing but, supposing we will just focus on this region here. You have a surface of solid, and on that solid you have your air bubble that is interacting with it, and the contact angle is nothing but the angle that the air bubble subscribes at the point of contact. So this angle here, so this your air bubble and this is your solid, and this angle is the angle of contact. So at the point of contact, the air bubble makes an angle theta with respect to the solid, and this is referred to as the point of, or this is referred to as the contact angle. Now using this contact angle, it is possible for us to state how much or quantify the interaction between the air bubble and that of the solid. Now the way we can estimate this contact angle is, this contact angle is expressed as that of cos theta, that is the contact angle, is equal to, again we need to consider, to quantify this we need to consider all these different interfacial energies. So the interfacial energy after manipulation between the solid and air bubble minus the interfacial energy after manipulation between the solid and the liquid, and which is normalized by the interfacial energy after or between the air bubble and the liquid. So primarily the contact angle, it depends on these two variables, and it is normalized by the third variable. It is taken, or it is generalized by the third variable here. So what it means is that depending on this difference between the interfacial energy of solid liquid and the interfacial energy of the air bubble and the solid, the wettability of the air bubble varies. The theta that dictates the interaction between how extended is the extent of the interaction between the air bubble and the solid. It depends on largely the interfacial energy between the solid and the air bubble and the solid and the liquid, which is here. Now when the interaction is extensive, so for the case of hydrophobic particle on an hydrophobic surface, the interaction will be extensive. In the case of an interaction on extensive interaction, so we have considered a simplistic case of a solid and an air bubble, and this is the contact angle. So this is a generalized case to understand what a contact angle is. Now let us focus on a hydrophobic surface. So hydrophobic surface, so this means the interfacial energy between solid and liquid is significantly greater than that of the interfacial energy between the air bubble and the solid after manipulation. So in such a case, what we would observe is a given particle or given air bubble, it wants to spread out on the surface as much as possible in order to reduce the energy of the interface. So let me repeat. So for a given air bubble when you have a sufficiently high hydrophobic case, it wants to separate, it wants to spread out as much as possible in order to ensure that the energy of the interface is reduced. So when compared to the case 1 here, in case 2, the same air bubble wants to spread out as much as possible. So it wants to spread out, say, as much as possible. So it wants to spread out as much as possible so that it is able to cover, or rather replace, as much as interfacial area that is between the liquid and the solid. So it wants to avoid as much as the contact between the solid and the liquid. So therefore it spreads how much ever is possible, it spreads. Now in this case, when you measure the contact angle, when you measure this contact angle here, so this contact angle for an hydrophobic case is higher, greater than a generalized one. So this is a generalized one. It is greater than, this generalized contact angle is much less than one that you observe in the hydrophobic case. Now why that happens is because when you consider the conceptual understanding of it, when you understand the concepts of it, you observe that the high energy region is the one wherein the solid is in contact with the liquid. Now you allow a gas to interact in this, between these two mixtures of solid and liquid, you allow the gas to interact, and it is possible for this air bubble to reduce the energy of the system by covering this interface. Now greater the difference, greater will the air bubble wants to cover this interface. So therefore, when it covers the larger area, its contact angle correspondingly increases. So that is what we observe here. So conceptually, the given air bubble wants to cover a larger area when the difference between the interfaces are higher. So this is the conceptual understanding of it. So when the difference between the interfacial energy of solid and liquid is significantly higher than that of solid and air bubble, a given air bubble meaning an air bubble of a given size, will tend to cover as much as area as possible. When it tends to do that, correspondingly the contact angle would increase. So therefore, when we say the air bubble, the contact angle of the air bubble for a given surface is higher, then it means that the surface is hydrophobic. In the context of the froth flotation, the surface is hydrophobic. Now on the other hand, if we consider a third case of a hydrophilic interaction, wherein the surface of the manipulated solid and that of the liquid is much less than that of the interfacial energy of the air bubble and the manipulated solid surface. In that case, what we observe is, in first place, there will not be much of an interaction between the air bubble and the solid, because already the solid itself is in its low energy state. However, if at all there is an interaction, the interaction will be confined to a very small area. So the interaction will largely be confined to a very small area. So then the only area that will be replaced by the air bubble is the very small one here, the most insignificant one here. And now when you measure the contact angle, so theta for the hydrophilic case, when compared to the generalized theta, the generalized contact angle we consider here for the hydrophilic case will be much less than the generalized one. So when the interfacial energy of the solid, the manipulated solid, and with respect to that of the liquid is the lowest, then the system qualitatively, the solid would qualitatively avoid to interact with air bubble. If at all it interacts with the air bubble, then the area of interaction will be lower, and when you in that case measure the contact angle will also be significantly lower. So similar to that of the hydrophobic condition, we are able to grasp a conceptual understanding and also a quantitative understanding of the hydrophilic, the interaction between the hydrophilic particle and the air bubble. So the hydrophilic particle is already in its lowest energy state when interacting with water. Now if at all it needs to interact with the air bubble, the interaction is restricted to a small region, and so therefore when you measure the corresponding contact angle, it is much lower. So when you want to consider the interaction of the particles with the air bubble quantitatively, so when you observe that the contact angle when between the particle and the air bubble is higher, then it means the surface, the particle is hydrophobic. If the contact angle is lower, then the particle you are considering is hydrophilic. Now in the context of the particle, now when we go back to how the particle is observed or it is found during Froth flotation, if you consider a random particle, irregularly shaped particle like this, generally when this particle is hydrophobic, then the air bubbles attempt to occupy as much as interfacial areas as possible. So generally this is how these particles or the air bubbles interact with the particles. So they attempt to reduce as much as the interfacial energies as possible. On the other hand, if you have a similar particle, it's difficult for me to draw an identical particle, but some sort of a similar particle which is hydrophilic in nature, and if you allow this, here we have 4 different air bubbles that are interacting with the particles. So if we allow these 4 different air bubbles to again interact with this particle which is hydrophilic, they will be of this form. So they will be of this form here. So they barely interact with the particle. So this is hydrophobic and this is hydrophilic. And now when you allow these a propagation, a movement to the particle based on these air bubbles, since the interaction in the hydrophilic particle is low, when you want to rather facilitate the air bubbles to move upward, when you want to create a setup wherein you want to allow the air bubbles to move upward, instead of carrying these particles, these air bubbles, they independently move upward without any attachment. These particles, when you allow or when you force these air bubbles to move upward, they get detached from this particle and they just propagate separately. On the other hand, when you want or when you allow, when you force these air bubbles here to move upward, they carry along this hydrophobic particle. So when you have a system, and this is the 2 ways, or these are the ways all the particles within the mixture interacts. So you have a system that comprises of solid particles, and now you have distinguished the solid particles into phobic and philic, and now these particles you allow it to interact with the air bubbles, and now we observe that there are 2 forms of interaction. And once you are sure that all the particles have interacted with the air bubbles, now you force a specific movement for the air bubbles. You force the air bubbles to move upward. Now when you force the air bubbles to move upward, in this case here, in the hydrophilic case, the air bubbles, they get detached and they alone move upward. In case of hydrophobic case, they carry the particle along with them, and thereby establishing a froth that comprises. So the collection of the air bubbles forms a froth. So this froth comprises of an hydrophobic particles, whereas the remnant liquid comprises of the remnant water, it comprises of the hydrophilic particles, and therefore we have essentially established a separation between the hydrophobic particles and hydrophilic particles, meaning we have established a separation between the concentrate and the gangue. So this is the theory that essentially governs the separation of mineral and gangue in the framework of froth flotation. So it has to do with manipulation, of course, it has to do with changing the interferential energy, and correspondingly the interaction with the air bubble changes, and it can be quantified by contact angle. And now when you force the air bubble to move upwards, then you are able to correspondingly differentiate the hydrophobic particles to hydrophilic. So once the success lies in appropriately distinguishing or appropriately manipulating the surface of the minerals in contrast to the surface of the gangue or tailings. And once you are able to do that, the rest will be followed by this theory behind all these theoretical process. So now, once we have, so this is purely a theoretical consideration. What we have now considered is individual particle, and we have considered the interaction of few air bubbles with a given individual particle. Now, when you consider an actual froth flotation process, there are too many particles that are involved, and these particles are of varying size. So first, separation is achieved by either the ability of the air bubbles to carry the particle, or its inability to get attached to the particles and to carry it above. So the first separation in the froth flotation is achieved by the ability of the air bubbles to interact with the particle, and based on their interaction, the ability of the air bubble subsequently to carry the particle. So this is referred to as the true flotation. So now we are moving away from the theoretical consideration, the simplistic, straightforward consideration of the interaction between one given particle and the air bubble. Instead of doing that, now we are considering all possible interactions that can be observed in a given froth flotation technique. So instead of considering, so when you consider the froth flotation technique, so there are several thousand particles, or maybe millions of particles, hundreds of thousands of particles that could be present in a setup at a given instant. And despite the hugeness of, despite the numerous particles being present, we are able to manipulate their surfaces, and depending on their manipulation, their interaction between the air bubbles vary, and depending on their interaction, it is possible for a given air bubble either to carry a given particle, either to carry a particle along with it, or to get detached from the particle and leave the particle within the liquid surface. So both these are possible. So when a given air bubble is allowed to carry a particle, an hydrophobic particle, thereby separating it from the hydrophilic particle, then that is referred to as true flotation. Now on the other hand, it is also possible that within the air bubble, so again within the air bubble, there are some amount of water that is present. So there are some amount of water that is present, and because of this water, it is possible that the solid, the hydrophilic solid, extends its interaction with the air bubble. So generally, this hydrophilic solid should avoid interacting with the air bubble. However, because of some amount of water that is present within the air bubble, the interaction is extended. So ideally, you have interaction between solid and air bubble alone, but because again we consider a huge setup for this froth flotation, and this probability of having, or this probability of an air bubble enclosing some amount of water or encapsulating some amount of water is possible, and because of the presence of water within the air bubble, the interaction between the hydrophilic solid and the air bubble is extended. So more than our theory, because of this unique condition here, the interaction is extended, meaning the contact angle in this case is rather increased. It is as though this particle, which was originally hydrophilic, has now decreased this nature of hydrophilic. The property of hydrophilic nature is decreased. So in that case, the extension is extended, or the interaction is extended. Interaction between the air bubble and the solid, it extended, and now it is possible because of this extended interaction. So this extended interaction is due to the presence of water in the air bubble, and therefore because the water is present in the air bubble, the solid, without distinguishing between the water that is present in the container and the water that is present in the air bubble, the interaction remains the same. So therefore the extent of interaction increases. So that means it becomes possible for the hydrophilic particles to get carried away by the air bubbles. So this separation is also possible, and this is referred to as entrainment. So entrainment is rather an undesired separation, as opposed to a true flotation. Entrainment is an undesired separation. So through the true flotation, what we separate is the hydrophobic particles. The froth, it collects the hydrophobic particles. However, through the entrainment, what occurs is, in the entrainment, because of the presence of liquid in the air bubble, the interaction between the hydrophilic particle increases. So therefore, the froth, along with the considerable amount of the hydrophobic particle, some amount of hydrophilic particles are also getting carried over, or are also getting entrapped by the movement of, or the propagation of the air bubbles, and that is referred to as entrainment. And as opposed to true flotation, which is desirable to us, entrainment is undesirable. On the other hand, there is another form of separation that is referred to as the aggregation. And in aggregation, this aggregation is observed when a given combinations of air bubbles, so instead of, so far we have been considering just one air bubble, a given combination, there are a given combinations of air bubbles, and these air bubble, they collectively collect some particles, they collectively gather hydrophobic particles. So these air bubbles, they collectively gather hydrophobic particles. Now, because they form a network such as this, because they form a setup like arrangement such as this, it is possible for some of the hydrophilic particles to get accommodated here. So without any interaction, without any reduction in the free energy, or without any energetically favorable interaction, what happens here is, because the interaction between the hydrophobic, the desired interaction between the hydrophobic particle and the air bubble, because of formation of network due to this interaction, there are certain particles that get trapped in this network, and this is what we refer to as the aggregation. And when this particle, they attempt to float on the surface of the liquid, they also carry along with it this entrapped hydrophilic particles. And again, similar to that of the entrainment, the aggregation here is also undesired. Again, so when you consider the separation that is observed during the flotation technique, there are three different separations that are observed. One is the true flotation, which is entirely consistent with the theory that we have seen. The true flotation means the hydrophobic particle, it wants to reduce the interaction with the liquid, so it interacts with the air bubble, and when the air bubble moves, along with it, the hydrophobic particle is carried away. However, in case of entrainment, the particle does not actually react with the air bubble, but it reacts with, or it interacts with the water that is present in the air bubble. So what essentially happens is, while the air bubble moves, because of the interaction between the particle and the water within the air bubble, these particles, these hydrophilic particles, are also unfortunately or undesirously carried away. And the same goes for the aggregation. Here, the aggregation is rather a structural phenomena, because here there is not much interaction between the hydrophilic particles and the air bubble whatsoever, but the desired interaction between the hydrophobic and the air bubble is rather of an convoluted form, is rather forms a network that entraps the other adjacent particles. These particles can be hydrophobic or hydrophilic, irrespective of it, it just gets entrapped in this structure here, in this network here. And because this network here is dominated by the air bubble, so as the air bubble attempts to float to the surface of the liquid, it also carries with it the hydrophilic particles, the undesired hydrophilic particles. So in these, we have the true flotation that is desired, and these two which are undesired. And the efficiency of a given flotation technique depends on achieving maximum amount of true flotation. So when you are able to achieve maximum true flotation, you are enabled, or you are able to achieve the maximum efficiency. Now it is important for us to note that the efficiency does not depend on how we are able to manipulate the surface of the particle, because that is usually done within the setup. But here the efficiency, it depends on how we are able to, how we allow the separation to occur. So that is what governs the efficiency of the froth flotation technique. Now, To wind the discussion on flotation technique, let us consider the setup that is generally employed in the context or to separate the mineral from that of the gangue using the froth flotation technique. So this is the setup that is usually employed. So what we have is, we have our feed, the mixture of particles that is fed into the setup, and in this setup you have your water, and along with it you have the combination of the reagents. So you have your water and reagents, and here you have a rotor or a stator. So what this essentially does is, this rotor or a stator, it combines the water, the collector and the air. So it combines all these in order to ensure that these two ensures that the interaction or the surface manipulation is sufficient. So the sufficient amount of surface manipulation is achieved. So the combination of the water and the collector through the rotor. So the rotor ensures that all the particles interact with the collector and sufficiently their surfaces are being manipulated. And in addition to that, when to this combination of water and collector you introduce air, this rotor then produces air bubble. So once you introduce air, this rotor then introduces the air bubbles into this slurry. So what slurry basically is, the slurry comprises of the mixture of, so it comprises of the feed, so which is nothing but the mixture of particles, solids, and it also comprises of water, which is the solvent here, and in addition to that we include the chemical reagent, that is the collector, that manipulates the surface of the particles. So you have solid particles, you have liquid, water and the chemical reagent often, and we have introduced this rotor. This rotor ensures that all the particles interact with the collector, and it also ensures that whatever air that you feed in gets translated or gets into the slurry in the form of air bubble. And now we understood the theory of, or we just looked into the theory of the flotation. So here we assume that the concentrate is hydrophobic and the tailing is hydrophilic. So therefore the concentrate interacts with the air bubbles and gets collected as a froth on the surface, and the hydrophilic tailings they remain in the slurry and they are collected at the bottom of the setup. And we have launder in order to collect the froth, or in order to collect the concentrate that is present in the froth. So this is how the froth flotation is achieved in an industrial scale. So we have the slurry that includes feed, water, collector, and we introduce the air to produce the air bubbles, and depending on the interaction and between the air bubble and the surface of the particle, either the particles get accumulated on the froth, or it gets gathered at the bottom of the setup as tailings. And when it's gathered as the froth, it means it is hydrophobic. The surface of the particle is hydrophobic. If it is gathered as a tailing, it is hydrophilic. And this makes us easy for us to separate one category of particle from that of the other. So with this, we will wind this lecture up, and in the subsequent lecture, we will move on to a different consideration. We will consider the other techniques. Goodbye.